Polemics against Christianity, ancient and modern. Let us see how the ancient polemics against Christianity differ from modern polemics against Christianity. One of the most well-known works of apologetics against polemics against Christianity is by Origen. In his Contra Celsum, Origen, we're talking 2nd century after Christ, Origen responds to, let us say, a pagan philosopher, Celsus. We don't have Celsus' work. We have today fragments, statements, passages that are supposed to be from his work and that we find in Origen's Christian defense or defense of Christianity against the attack that was waged by Mr. Celsus. Now, what is the attack all about? The attack is typical. In the ancient world, we have so-called pagan philosophers who respond to the advent of Christianity. Now, those who welcome the advent, those who promote the advent, are not the sort of people, including the sort of philosophers, who are attacked by Origen. So Origen is attacking a type of philosopher that tradition refers to usually as Epicurean. To understand the type of philosopher, and so the motives of this philosopher who is inveighing against the advent of Christianity, we can look at a passage from a work by Leo Strauss titled, well, it's a preface to Spinoza's Critique of Religion. And Strauss refers to Epicureans now. And he says that the Epicureans are clearly frowned upon by Orthodox Jews, Judaism. He says that the Orthodox Jew traditionally considers the unbeliever an Epicurean. Now, he writes, Epicureanism is hedonism, and traditional Judaism always suspects that all theoretical and practical revolts against the Torah are inspired by the desire to throw off the yoke of the stern and exacting duties so that one can indulge in a life of pleasure. Simple to understand. Daddy, I don't want to listen to you. I want to go have fun. Let's get back to Strauss. Epicureanism can lead only to a mercenary morality, whereas traditional Jewish morality is not mercenary. The reward for the fulfillment of the commandment is the commandment. This is a traditional line. Epicureanism is so radically mercenary that it conceives of its theoretical doctrines as the means for liberating the mind from the terrors of religious fear, of the fear of death, and of natural necessity. Now, here, Strauss is referring to, let's say, the likes of Lucretius, and of course Epicurus himself. So, ancient Epicureans look at religion as a terrifying thing, terrible. They want to be free from religion in the respect that they want to push it back. They want space for themselves, for their own way of life. Now, let's get back to Strauss. Characteristically, modern unbelief is indeed no longer Epicurean. By this, Strauss means that it is no longer Epicurean in the original sense. You could say that it's neo-Epicurean. But let's get back. It is no longer cautious or retiring, not to say cowardly, but bold and active. Now, let us consider this this almost tongue-in-cheek reference to cowardly. Socrates is not cowardly. The Epicurean who hides from religion, he exposes himself to that accusation. Let's get back. So the modern one is bold and active, he says. Whereas Epicureanism fights the religious, quote-unquote, delusion because of its terrible character, modern unbelief fights it because it is a delusion. Now, Strauss goes on, and he essentially points out that because the modern Epicurean does, or the modern exponent of unbelief, does not recognize the terrible character of religious authority, really, or of authority in its sacred sense, so at its roots, because he underestimates the limits of philosophy in this world of ours, he goes ahead and attacks religion in a bold and active way, right? And he doesn't limit himself to planting his own garden, cultivating his own garden. He says, Strauss says, he goes on to plant a garden by making himself the master and owner of nature. But this whole enterprise requires, above all, political action, revolution, a life and death struggle. The Epicurean who wishes to live securely and retiredly must transform himself into an idealist who has learned to fight and to die for honor and truth. But in proportion as the systematic effort to liberate man completely from all non-human bonds seems to succeed, the doubt increases whether the goal is not fantastic. It goes on. Essentially, we're building a Tower of Babel, falls apart. At any given moment, we could blow ourselves apart to the smithereens. So we don't know where the heck we're going. The whole project is based on posturing, right? There's the new morality. Oh, indignation. Oh, the idealism. We stand for truth and honor. Yes. Well, these are empty words. We stand for words. What is the ground of this? And it turns out modern Epicureanism or Neo-Epicureanism, or at any rate modern progressivism or idealism, fails to account for itself. First, it appeals to history, evolution, but that could go either way or any way. So it goes nowhere. And so what we're left with is a barbaric rejection of religion, and especially of Christianity, for decisive reasons. But here we have Epicureanism. So in the ancient case, the attack on Christianity is waged by Epicureans. Let us just call them Epicureans conveniently. It's just a term, but it refers to this type of philosopher that Strauss has pointed to, as described. Now, these ancient Epicureans attack Christianity because it is a threat to their life of contemplation. It attacks Christianity as superstition, as certainly as deluded, but as being on the side of the people, and as serving as a means for the people to attack philosophy. So it was to keep the people at bay. By people, I mean the plebes, the ordinary people who are the non-philosophers. So there is a kind of a haughtiness, right, say, an arrogance, a presumption on the part of the Epicurean. He is special. He is better than all the other people, right? So there's nothing really significant about the so-called delusion of religion, which, of course, non-philosophers follow, non-scientists. However, you say, well, why doesn't he become a modern unbeliever? That's because he recognizes that people need religion. He recognizes that a society cannot thrive, cannot be sustained, is just simply unsustainable on philosophical grounds, on Epicurean grounds. So there is a society without philosophy, but there is no philosophy without a society. Religion is terrible in a brutish sense, where it is alienated from philosophy. This latter insight is not Epicurean. The Epicurean does not recognize an alternative to this tension, the ancient Epicurean, right? The tension between the philosopher and the city. City is religious. The Epicurean, unbeliever, thinks that everybody else is deluded. So he stays away from everyone. He is far from supposing that he can convert the city into a city, into a place based on, an order of things founded on Epicurean principles. That will be a Machiavellian project, which we are, we're suffering, as it were, today. Let us return to another piece by Strauss, briefly, where Strauss refers to the claim that what we need today, in the Western, shall we say the Western claim, widespread in the West, maybe all over the world now. Let's take a step back. Let us turn to the more promising present-day argument in favor of revelation. I shall not waste words on the most popular argument, which is taken from the needs of present-day civilization, the present-day crisis, which would simply amount to this, that what we need today, in order to compete with communism, is revelation as a myth. Now, this argument is either stupid or blasphemous. Why does Strauss say that? You see, we're talking about the Cold War, and there were people who said, "Oh, what's the difference between America and communism?" Well, America needs Christianity to distinguish itself from communism. That's what he's referring to here. But the argument goes further, and it doesn't need to refer to communism. It simply suggests that in order for modern society, right, for modern society to survive, it needs religion. So religion we need as a myth. And Strauss says this argument is either stupid or blasphemous. He goes on saying that we find similar arguments also within Zionism, he says, needless to say. And I think this whole argument has been disposed of in advance a long time ago by Dostoevsky in The Possessed. Worthwhile looking into that. Now, why is the argument stupid or blasphemous? Well, it's stupid if, or in the respect that it does not understand what religion is essentially. It misses the point completely. I mean, religion is tied to human nature. So, and the human condition. It is simply stupid to say that it's just a myth and we can pick our myth, pick our religion, believe in what we want. It's all up to us. That's stupid. It's blasphemous in the respect that if you accept that religion is tied to human nature, and that it's not just a matter of myth, right? but it's something um, of great existential import that is not just there for us to amuse ourselves, for us to entertain ourselves. Religion is something extremely important to the human being. If we accept that religion has the sacred at its heart, that it's irreducible to the merely human, then we see that to treat religion as mere myth is to be blasphemous, is to reject the divine in the human account. So this is what the modern Epicurean is up to. He rejects not only the divine, but also the necessary character, the natural character of religion. In that respect, he is both stupid and blasphemous. Now, one might say, all right, so we have this tension between the Epicurean, selfish philosopher, and then the society of non-philosophers. Conflict, inevitable conflict, no mediation. Not quite. Thank God we have a Socratic alternative. Now, in that piece called Progress or Return, that this latter statement is drawn from, Strauss had referred to philosophy as originally a way of life, a life animated by peculiar passion, the philosophic desire, or eros, not understood as an instrument or department of human self-realization. Philosophy understood as an instrument or as a department is, of course, compatible with every thought of life and therefore also with the biblical way of life. What he is saying here is that there is absolutely no conflict between the philosopher and the city if philosophy is domesticated. But philosophy in itself is not domesticated. It is very dangerous for the city. One might say that the city is dangerous for the philosopher in some sense, in a physical sense, but philosophy is dangerous. It's an existential threat for the city as long as the city is living in the element of brutish religion. By that we mean a religion that is not mediated by a philosophical spirit. A key point here, referring to Christianity, is brought up by Strauss. Way of life is not it is a philosophy that is not in its original sense, in its original sense of the term. Okay, this has been greatly obscured, I believe, by the Western development, because philosophy was certainly in the Christian Middle Ages deprived of its character as a way of life and became just a very important compartment, I believe, he says. Certainly, philosophy was certainly in the Christian Middle Ages deprived of its character. Now, evidently, Strauss is not suggesting that there was no such thing as philosophy in the Middle Ages in its original sense. When he speaks about philosophy being deprived in the Christian Middle Ages, he is referring to the official status. Philosophy is no longer independent of theological, even legal considerations. That was a necessity of, say, the very project of defending human freedom. Now, that project is integral to medieval Christianity. In order to defend natural reason, natural freedom, you need some authority. That authority will defend freedom, but at the same time, necessarily will have to tie freedom to itself. So there are compromises that have to be made. In exchange for those compromises, what does philosophy as a way of life gain? Well, it gains a high reputation. It is sometimes referred to as the life of the saint or the mystical life. So it is elevated. Philosophy is, the philosopher as such, or the Socratic philosopher, doesn't really care much for that, but it is a meager price to pay for the Christian vindication of really the philosophical life. Now, here we stand and we say, well, what about the ancient attack on Christianity? Is that to some extent justified? It is not justified in the respect that it does not recognize the original significance, import of Christianity and its cultivated representatives. These are mediating the philosophical life and the life of the city, the life of common people. It is raising the stakes for philosophy. It is raising the bar for philosophy. It is saying that philosophy is not limited to Epicurean dreams, but that philosophy, therefore, must face a danger, what it perceives as terrible, which is the challenge posed by religion, what we would call divine revelation. Now, with Christianity, the paradigmatic divine revelation, of course, the one that is true, is the biblical revelation. Now, freedom has to come to terms with this challenge, facing divine revelation, the terrible. Epicureans obviously will reject that. They will say, horrible, bad idea. Christianity is a bad idea. It will associate Christianity as a whole with superstition, bad, the life of the city, the non-philosophers, all garbage. In our modern context, the attack on Christianity is waged by the free thinkers, who are not altogether free after all. There's a line where Strauss refers to them, where he says the free thinking argument is really based on poor thinking. It begs the question. So, in the modern case, what we have is an idealistic Epicureanism. We have people who say, look, we have the progress of science that is hampered by this old, delusional religion. It's all myth. It's all fairy tales. We have to overcome this and move forward with a scientific society. That would have been anathema for the ancient Epicurean. A scientific society. Oh no, bad idea, bad idea. So the modern Epicurean underestimates the problems, or he pretends to underestimate them, and he postures. Right? He pretends to be the voice of universal morality. Another scary thought for the ancient Epicurean. Oh, universal morality. No, no, bring back the old gods. Well, even the terrible ones, at least they're not this universal morality that destroys philosophy. So the modern scientist has given up on philosophy altogether. Philosophy in its original sense is out of the window. I don't know if we can find quickly a passage where Strauss points this out. He says, you know, there's no issue today because what we have, never mind, what we have is a new science that is historical, that is progressive by being groundless, and we no longer have pure philosophy, pure science, if you like. There's nothing pure about the posturing, the appeal to honor and whatnot, truth. These are all empty words. So here we stand. We have a barbaric unbeliever, and unfortunately, we also have a barbaric believer. Now, that's because we have abandoned mediation. And mediation was what Christianity was all about. Christ is the great mediator. Mediation is what Christianity brings to the table. It says, look, philosopher, you want to be a philosopher? Fine. Be a Socratic one. What does that involve? It involves bracketing your confidence that you have a sphere of life that is pure and immaculate and untouched by the city. That you're a big shot. Right? Everybody else is the unwashed masses. Give that up. Step down from your podium and face now what is most dangerous, for truth lies in danger. Truth lies in danger, not away from danger. Religion is dangerous. At the same time, when you face danger, you begin recognizing that the people are not simply deluded, that they're not just the unwashed masses that can be converted to a new science, that the people have a reason for sticking to old religion, and that reason is irreducible to their delusion, but it's integral to human nature and for good reason. So it's not going away. Religion is not going away as long as people are still there. And this means that the job of philosophy with respect to the city is not one of overturning religion or of moving towards a universal society that is religious free and value free, or whatever you want to call it, a new morality that is for everyone and for no one at the same time, where everyone's a friend because friendship is gone, it's all a pretense. The challenge and the mandate for the philosopher now is to civilize religion, to polish religion, to cleanse it, to help people recognize that religion is not there to destroy freedom, but to help us understand freedom, to help us appreciate that freedom is compatible with religion, and that freedom is not simply that of the Epicurean, but that it is something tied to the reason why we have religion, something intimately tied to divine necessity.